Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm really excited to be here talking to you. Apologies, I can't actually get my name to change on here. So it comes up as my colleague's name, Kuda Hussein, instead of my name, which is Sheetal Nakrani. So technical glitch there. But yeah, I'll just introduce myself and then just talk to you about what we're going to cover today. But yeah, thanks so much for joining, and hopefully this presentation or session will be quite useful for you. So here's the agenda. So we're going to spend about half an hour just doing an introduction to PA consulting and graduate recruitment as well. And then we'll go into some tips and tricks and application advice for, how to approach your initial application, an assessment day, interviews, competency type interviews, all those things in the best way. And really what we're trying to do is base our advice off of practical comments that or feedback that we've received in our process. So hopefully it's really, really useful for you in terms of going forwards and making, applications. Then we've got Nick Newman, who's one of our senior partners, joining us, who will do a little bit of an intro to himself. And then Neil's going to come back on to do a bit of a Q&A with him as well. So yeah, if you do have any questions, then do pop them in the chat and he'll pick those up and facilitate a Q&A. And I'm sure Nick will have some really interesting kind of stories to tell and projects to talk about as well. So yeah, do use this opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. So this is myself and Kutha. We both work in the graduate recruitment team. We are a really small team, actually. It's just the two of us. So we kind of look after the end-to-end process for candidates in terms of, screening all the applications when they come through into our portal. We take candidates through to assessment center, where we run competency-based interviews, case studies and group exercises. We take candidates through to, final interviews and also through to offer calls as well. So really goes from start to finish. If you are going to grad fairs at universities as well, then you probably see our faces. We tend to be at a lot of the grad events, panels, presentations, fairs, those types of things. So yeah, we really kind of do the whole piece. And we love kind of meeting candidates throughout the process. So yeah, do get your application into us if you are interested. What I should mention is our roles actually aren't live at the moment. If you are looking to apply to PA consulting, we should be live by mid-October. So just keep an eye on the website if anyone is interested in looking further into our roles. So a little bit about PA. We are all about bringing ingenuity to life. So if you've heard of PA before or done any research on us, you'll kind of see this tagline in most places. And it really does sit at the heart of everything that we do. So, we are all about creativity and innovation. I'm really encouraging our consultants to come up with different perspectives and bring new ideas to the table. And that, we encourage that because we know that we can, kind of encourage diversity of thought and learn from each other's ideas and bounce off each other's ideas as well. So it's really important to us that, yeah, creativity and innovation is at the heart of everything that we do. A little bit about kind of PA numbers. So we are around about 3,300 employees. It's probably a bit higher now, actually, because our growth is very exciting and quite ambitious at the moment. So we're looking to grow in a number of spaces. That's in, the experienced hire space, but also the early career space as well. We take all of our graduate intake. And I would say that kind of mirrors, how successful we are as a business in terms of gaining more and more, client work, which is really exciting. And, as we start to kind of gain more clients under our belt, we, trying to kind of source enough employees to go out and deliver on these exciting projects. So that's kind of our number. And then on the side, you'll kind of see our different sectors, which I think there are more slides on as well. But these are kind of the different sectors that we operate across. So effectively, anyone who comes into PA is assigned to a capability team, which is kind of like your specialty. And then also you've got kind of the sectors that you can work across. So there is the opportunity to get involved in a variety of work in terms of industry, but also then you'll be able to kind of be specialized in, in that area that you've applied to. These are capabilities. So I mentioned capabilities about 10 seconds ago. These are kind of all of our different areas of expertise, as you can see on the screen. So again, a lot of variety. We have a number of technical roles, and we also have a number of kind of more businessy consulting type roles as well. So it depends on what you're after. A lot of our kind of business type or consulting type roles are more rotational. So you get the chance to join a cluster or a scheme where you can move around into different teams and get a flavor of what those different teams do before deciding where you want to specialize. And then some of our technical roles are more kind of specialized. So if you want to have a career in software engineering, or if you want to have a career in applied sciences, those types of things, then you can apply directly to one of those roles, and that would be your focus. That doesn't take away from the fact that you'd still be able to get, doesn't take away from the fact that you would still get variety because you're naturally working on different projects and working with different clients, working with different teams. So despite what you do, you'll get a lot of variety in consulting and at PA consulting. It's just the nature of the way that some of the roles work is slightly different. So just more of our capabilities on there as well, and I'll just leave them up there for a sec for you guys to take a quick look at that. And then if I just hand over to Kutha, I think Kutha's online and I can hear her. So finally we've got that working. So Kutha's the other graduate recruiter that I mentioned at the start. So Kutha, if you want to do a quick intro, you can do, and then maybe go into the next few slides.
Cool. Thanks, Sheetal. Sorry, everyone. I was having some tech issues, and I think you just heard me coughing in the background. So like Sheetal said, I'm Kutha. I'm the other graduate recruiter in the team. So Sheetal and I work very closely together to bring on all of the new grads every year, which is a really sort of rewarding and a fun role for us because we get to meet all of you guys and kind of work with you to see which role sort of best fits you. I've been at PA for a couple of years now, but I've been doing graduate recruitment for a few years, and I really love it because it's a bit of career coaching. It's recruitment. It's kind of starting off candidates sort of in the beginning of their careers, which is always really exciting for both us and for you guys. So just a little bit about me. I'm sure Sheetal sort of ran through sort of what we do in the business. I'm not going to bore you anymore by repeating that side. But just in terms of what you can see on the slide here now, so we offer a variety of different graduate roles. So as Sheetal mentioned, we have lots of different sectors and capabilities that we work in. So whether you're someone who wants to apply for one of our sort of more management consultancy style roles, so that would primarily sit in the business transformation and strategy and analytics graduate scheme, so that's rotational. Or if you're someone who comes from a more sort of design or engineering or science background, I guess STEM would be probably the best way to describe that. We've got sort of specific roles tailored to those careers. And then they all sort of 18-month programs, which sort of would upskill you to get to what we call internally a consultant analyst, which is the next rank up. But we work with candidates throughout the entire recruitment process from application to offer. So if there's any questions, I see there's a chat function here, so just feel free to send through your questions as and when we get through the slide. Next slide, please. Cool. So I guess I'll quickly run through in terms of a little bit what we look for. And I think the interesting thing is no matter what role that you're looking to pursue, so whether it's one of our management consultancy style role or our engineering roles or even the design role, what we're really looking for from our early career candidates is basically what you can see on the side right now. So things like being creative and working together and really being sort of innovative. I mean, if we all came up with the same solutions, why would we even need consultants in the first place, right? So it's really about showcasing your creativity and enthusiasm throughout the process. So we're really looking for those keen learners that just want to get stuck in. So again, that kind of brings us into, problem solving skills, being flexible, achieving your goals. And there's so many different ways you can showcase that throughout the application process. We'll go through each stage with you in a little bit more detail. But I think a lot of times candidates sort of come to us with questions like, what should I be doing? Work experience, internships, whatever. And I would say do everything and anything will be helpful. So whether it's that part-time job that you're doing, sort of a retail job, hospitality, whether it's a volunteering activity that you're doing, maybe you picked up a skill that you're teaching yourself on the side, maybe you've got a side hustle. I know a lot of students nowadays are setting up their own sort of random businesses and things like that. That's amazing. Those are the kinds of things that will sort of develop your skills so that you can showcase throughout your application. So just really telling us who you are, how you've gone about developing your skills, and really telling your story, your unique individual story and how you got to this application process. But we'll go through in more details because I know right now keeping it a little bit high level. And then I guess in terms of a little bit of what we offer you, so I think at PA, early responsibility is definitely a big one for us. So it's a really great environment in that after the induction period, so there is sort of an official induction and training period to get you sort of up to speed in terms of who we are and how we operate. But then it's straight in there. That's not to say you're not going to have any support along the way. So you'll have your supervisors, your mentors, your line managers sort of on hand to seek advice. But it's really about just getting stuck in. And I think that's one of the really exciting parts about working at PA. I remember one of my early memories of starting here was in a meeting with a few different consultants around the business, and they were all different ranks, and it was really inspiring to see sort of everyone had a voice. So whether it was the new grad who was in the room, sort of analysts is what we call them internally, or one of the more senior stakeholders, everyone sort of was, invited to contribute and take ideas. And actually it was the analyst who was leading that conversation. And that being one of my first experiences of PA sort of really kind of stuck with me, to be honest, because it's really been something that we kind of see through since I've been here, which probably leads quite nicely onto progression on merit. So once you finish the graduate scheme, it's completely, the world is your oyster in terms of how quickly you want to progress. And there's no sort of cookie cutter journey. So that's something I really want to emphasize, because I think a lot of times it's very easy to sort of look around and see what other people are doing. But I think the cool thing about consultancy, it's really, because it's so varied and there's lots of different things going on, you can really kind of take the time to explore, see what your interests are. Maybe you want to become a specialist in a certain area, maybe you want to be a generalist consultant, but actually it's all there for you to sort of experience and to learn from. So it's, the journey, every consultant's journey is actually quite unique. So if you do end up meeting anyone around our business and kind of hearing their story, I don't think I've ever heard two stories that were the same, which is, again, just another fun thing about working at PA. So yeah, and then just in terms of graduating to the consultant analyst role, so all of our grads will then sort of be promoted within those 2 years to the next rank up, and sort of, I think there's a little bit there on salary, but I feel like it's quite self-explanatory. So if anyone does have any questions on remuneration, please feel free to ask us. But so yeah, so I will move on. Sheets, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So just to talk a little bit about application process, so that you know what to expect. Well, actually, if I go on the website, what am I going to have to do, and what does your process look like? So the kind of initial application probably involve you're submitting your CV, cover letter, which is optional, but we always advise to do it, and we're going to come back to that. And then there might be some kind of online testing combined with video interviewing, depending on the role that you're applying to. And there are websites that you can practice those types of things. So feel free to go away and actually have a practice session before you come back and do the real thing. And usually with video interviews as well, you can kind of see the questions up front. So typically you don't have to speak for very long with video interviews, but you can see the questions up front. And if you think, I want to look at them and then go away, think about my answers and then come back to it, then again, you can do that as well. So don't do anything in a haste and don't rush, I would say. Take your time with your application, because you really want to convey the employer that convey to the employer that you've thought about what you've put down in there. So that's really important. The next stage is an assessment centre. So if you're successful at that application stage, we'll invite you to come along to an assessment day that is made up of a competency-based interview, a case study, and a group exercise. What's really cool about the assessment day is whilst recruitment are there, we don't run the assessments. It's actually the consultants from the team that you've applied to that run the assessments. So, for all three of these exercises, you would meet somebody new from that team. And it's really nice because they all come from different levels of seniority, different experiences and projects, and they all naturally have different stories to tell. So we always encourage on our assessment day, make it a two-way process. And obviously you're there to be assessed, but at the same time, make sure you ask questions to the company as well about, what is it that's special about you, and what kind of projects do you work on, and anything that's interesting to you. Do that research and find out whatever you can before making a decision of whether that's where you want to focus your career. And I think that first step from university going into your first job is always a key one. You've got to make that decision importantly, because it's where you're kind of starting your career and starting your development. So that's really, really important. Make it a two-way process. And then the last stage is a final stage interview with a partner, which could be kind of competency based. Sometimes a little bit more informal, so the partner just kind of wants to get to know the talent that could be coming into their team. And it's a really nice way of the senior people in the team as well getting involved in recruitment, and having a say in talent in their team and growth in their team. So that's the process. And whilst it may look like a lot, I can promise you, once it starts, it goes very, very quickly. And I kid you not, I've not made this up, but a lot of candidates describe the process as fun. Now that's up to them. I didn't say it, they said it. But yeah, that's the aim of it. We don't want to put anyone under pressure to make them uncomfortable. We want to see the best out of you guys, so we try to make it fun, and we try to make it as engaging and interesting as possible. I'll just cover the application and just tell you kind of what we expect at the initial stage. And this is really relevant. It doesn't matter where you apply. It's not just for PA. It could be anywhere that you apply. But it's a great opportunity to sell yourself. Remember that employers never met you, so they don't have a clue about who you are, what you like, what you dislike, any of those things. And they're kind of almost, they're just reading a profile about you. So use the opportunity to sell yourself where you can on your CV, tailor as much as possible. So if you're applying to a specific role and you think, oh, I'm studying certain modules that might be really interesting to the employer, note those down. So I'm not saying note down kind of all 30 modules you've done over 3 years, but maybe there are specific ones that are really interesting that you think, resonate quite well with the role. You might have a personal profile in there that describes why you've applied to the role and why you think you might be suitable. You might also have extracurricular activities that are, really interesting. So often people kind of undervalue the value of things like charity work, or doing a personal project on the side, like building a website in your own time, or being part of a society. All those types of things are really, really interesting to us, and it builds character. So do talk about those things, and don't think, oh, just because it's not fancy work experience, I'm not going to put it on my CV. It's always interesting to us. So do talk about extracurricular activities. And I know this is a really, really basic one, so I'm apologizing in advance, because you're probably thinking, well, Sheetal, we know that, but make sure to check your grammar, and really, really basic things like that, because they're easy things that you can nail in your application. And employers straight away hate when someone's just kind of misspelled a word, or forgotten a full stop somewhere. Those things are really easy. So do your CV, walk away from it, and then maybe come back to it, or even ask friends and family, use the people around you. I remember I used to do that when I was a graduate. I probably still do it, probably still did it even kind of in my experience hire journey. So really important to check those really, really basic things. Then the cover letter, which we did mention earlier, is optional, and typically it tends to be. And I know it's really easy to just go ahead and press the apply button, just attaching your CV, but the cover letter really gives you an opportunity to go the extra mile and sell yourself. And we always say to candidates, try and split it almost into 3 paragraphs, and you don't have to restrict yourselves to this at all, but it's just advice if you're thinking, well, how would I go about writing a cover letter? There are kind of 3 key components in there, and that is, number 1, why did you apply to the company? Did you read about specific work that was really inspiring to you? Maybe you met someone at a grad fair. Maybe it's today. You heard us speak and were really inspired by some of the stuff that we say, or something that Nick Neiman might say. That's absolutely fine. You're telling a story as to why that employer appeals to you and what inspired you to apply, as opposed to us just feeling like, a kind of one in a million. In a number of job applications. So that's really important as one paragraph. The other paragraph is, why did you apply to that specific opportunity at the company? And a lot of people do it. They kind of keep their options open. We're looking at different opportunities. You don't have to make sure every role is identical, but what you do apply to should be interesting to you, and you should talk about why that's interesting to you. And that's really important. And I think the last kind of key component is, what do you think you can bring to the role? And I'm not talking about, kind of hard skills necessarily, but what transferable skills can you bring to the role? So if you have, retail experience or charity experience or whatever experience you may have, you must have developed some sort of soft skills in that. Maybe it's, teamwork, or your communication, or your leadership, or your organization. All those things are really, really important. So talk about those things as much as you can in the cover letter as well. So that's really, really important. Could I hand over to you?
Great, thank you. So a big part of the assessment center, and probably most applications that you'll go through, will be the competency-based interview. And I think this is probably the bit of the journey that a lot of people sort of overwork themselves in their head and get quite nervous before going through it, which is totally understandable, very natural. The one thing I would say is, a lot of these interviews, they should feel like a conversation, and ideally a conversation that you're enjoying, because the whole point of the process is to get to know you and sort of why you've applied to the role and the kind of skill sets that you can bring to it. As a piece of advice, I know that from the various interviews I've done in my career history, I've definitely enjoyed the interviews for the roles that I wanted, probably way more than the ones that I was applying to, because I thought maybe that's just what I had to do. So just bear that in mind. I know it sounds a bit weird, but you should effectively quite enjoy the interview process, because this is the bit where you're sort of really showcasing your excitement for the role. Now, typically what an employer will want to know during the interview will be, why specifically them? So for us, it'll be why PA, in comparison to some of our other competitors or other employers. Why consulting? Because that's predominantly who we are and what we do. And if it's one of our engineering roles, then why specifically sort of going into engineering rather than staying in academia or doing something else with your sort of skill set? And then that specific area that you've applied into. Now, a lot of the questions will sound like a question where they're sort of looking for an example. And then on the next slide that we'll turn to, you'll see some examples, and I'll run through sort of what they mean. I would say in a competency-based interview, even if you're being asked a hypothetical question, most likely 99.99%. And the only reason I leave out a percentage is just on the off chance that it might not be appropriate, but most of the time they are asking for an example. So think to yourself, what is the interviewer asking me, and do I have an example from my past that can really kind of showcase my example and really bring it to life? Because for the most part, what the interview is really trying to get out of is bringing your application to life, and really getting a window into who you are and how you approach a problem, how you go about solving it. Now, in the early career stage, we're not expecting you to be subject matter experts or anything like that, but it's really just to see how you interact with a new problem or a challenge, and how you go about sort of throwing yourself into it. Now, probably most of you would have heard of most of you would have heard of the STAR structure, which is situation, task, action, and result. If you're someone who's maybe not comfortable with interviews, or maybe you haven't had a lot of experience in them, I would definitely recommend that you stick to the STAR structure when you're sort of relaying your answers. The one thing I would say is, when it comes to situation and tasks, maybe don't spend as much time on that. So real quick, what was the situation? What was the challenge? Set the scene. But the bit that the assessor is really looking at is that action bit. What did you actually do? What was the game plan? Did you have to change the game plan? Were you the team leader or the team player? Did that ever change during the challenge? What was the outcome? It's really that practical side, because that's what will tell the interviewer how you would go about solving a new problem. And then real quick, kind of ending it on what the result was. But the most important part on the result bit, it's what you learned. So would you do the same thing again next time? Would you do something different? And really kind of setting the scene in terms of what you took away from that experience. The other piece of advice I would give when you are answering interview questions, I think students or candidates in general tend to look for all the times that they had lots of different successes, and those are great. We want to hear about all of your achievements, but don't be afraid to sometimes share some of your failures, because it's amazing the amount of the learning that you can take away from a time that you actually messed up on something or something went a little bit wrong. If I'm being honest, probably some of the best career lessons I've learned is probably when I've made some mistakes and I've had to fix them, because it's in that moment when you're solving the problem that you kind of become better as whatever it is that you're doing, and probably next time you'll do something different. And in fact, I remember my last interview when I came to PA, especially in recruitment, things go wrong all the time. So I actually had a couple of those short stories to share, and really sort of ended up having a really nice conversation with my interviewers about what we could do differently. And it was interesting to see that they face the same thing. So you can almost bond over those challenges. Most likely the employer is facing the same challenges that you faced. If I just quickly go to the next slide. Oh, I just saw a message from Sheeta. Oh, okay. I'll quickly wrap up on this bit and then I'll hand over. So just some examples on the competency-based style questions. So these are some examples you may come across. So you can see from my point earlier, a lot of the times they do sound like they're asking you for examples, but if you're ever getting a hypothetical question, please do give a practical example. And then also be careful about the wording sometimes interviewers will use. So for example, we're a consultancy. So if I was to interview a grad, I might use an example like, imagine you're a consultant, your assignment manager is away from the day, he's not able to be contacted, the client calls you really upset, is demanding to speak to your assignment manager, what do you do? And although I'm using consulting buzzwords and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, but I'm not a consultant, I've never been in that situation. Chances are you've probably been in a similar situation. So for example, maybe there was that time you were working in retail. A really angry customer comes up to you demanding to speak to your manager's gone to lunch, there's nobody around, what did you have to do? I know I definitely faced that when I was in uni, so chances are you've probably done something similar. So in that hypothetical question, you could say, well, this is how I would deal with it, XYZ, because there was that one time when I was working in McDonald's, this happened to me, that's how I dealt with it. If it went well, I'd probably apply the same strategy. It didn't go so well for me, so maybe this time I would do something different. But it's just telling the assessor how you think and how you're solving the problem and how you'd approach it based on sort of a real life justification, if you see what I mean. So feel free to bring in lots of different examples, really showcase your personality and the way that you approach a problem. That's really what we're looking for. And if you ever find yourself that the assessor might be asking you a similar question a couple of times, that's not because you're not doing a good job or they're trying to trick you out. Because I think a lot of times people get nervous when they're being probed. They're like, oh my God, am I not on the right track? Just remember, the assessor is actually there to support you. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy to put together an assessment day or an interview. The last thing the interviewer wants to do is reject all the candidates. So if the interviewer is actually giving you a probe or a hint, they're just wanting to get the best out of you. So instead of letting it sort of nerve-wrack you, make you more nervous, actually take it as a support. Be like, okay, this is what they're looking for. If you need to take a second, rethink, reestablish yourself, and then answer the question, please do that. But throughout the whole assessment process, you'll be surprised to see how many times the assessor is actually there to support you, because they want to get the best out of you so they can make the right decision for their business and for you as well. So I know it sounds a bit weird and it's probably rich coming from me as a recruiter, but try to enjoy the interview process and try to just go with the flow and then be the best. Try not to let your nerves get in the way of the performance, and just be yourself, have some fun with it, and then you'll do much better that way.
Cool, thanks, Ku. Sorry, I know we are running a little bit over, so I'm going to roll the next two slides into a quick one slide, if that's okay. But just want to cover the case study and the group exercise as well at assessment days, which are really quite similar. So we have an individual case study and a group exercise. It's just that in one, you're kind of being tested on your collaborative skills, but really the ask of the exercise is pretty similar. So if you are given a case study, which is quite typical on assessment day, then effectively the ask is that you've been given a pack of information. You're kind of expected to go through that information and really digest it, and not everything is important, so we're looking to see what bits can you kind of pick out as the key bits that you need to use in this exercise, and you're being asked to solve a problem, so that's really important. And on this page, we've kind of got some tips, and I'm just going to run through the main ones. I know this is really basic, but take your time to read through the materials, because when we're all nervous, we sometimes forget to answer the exam question. We kind of just go off on a bit of a tangent and think, oh, well, this is really interesting, I'll talk about this. And that may be the case, but remember, you're there to kind of answer a specific question and solve a specific problem. So make sure you've understood what the ask is. Once you've understood what the ask is, really think about how you're going to kind of structure your time. So if you've been given an hour or an hour and a half, what's your plan in that time? You might decide that you spend kind of 15 minutes reading and, kind of highlighting and making notes. Then you're going to kind of move on to the next section for the next kind of half an hour. And then you're going to kind of wrap up, for the last 20 minutes. Make that plan so that you're not kind of in a last minute panic at the end thinking, oh God, I've not even got my presentation ready. Now I've got to just rustle something up for the last 5 minutes. So as much as you can, plan, because it will allow you to kind of control your nerves and channel that energy as much as possible. And then I would say, and we mentioned this earlier on, try to be creative and put your stamp and your mark on it, because the assessor's not looking for that kind of generic or typical answer, but they're really trying to understand what kind of ideas can you come up with, what makes you, the way that you think, different, and how can you kind of bring, whether it's your experience or your knowledge or whatever it may be, to the table to kind of solve this problem. So be creative, be innovative, and don't be afraid to kind of come up with things that are out of the box, that you think, oh, it's quite wacky, it's quite out there, not sure if it will sit right. But sometimes those ideas are the best ones, and actually it probes the assessor to think in a different way as well, which they may have never thought about before. So you want to kind of come up with something thought-provoking where possible. And I think this is a really tricky one, so easier said than done, and I do appreciate that. But try to preempt things that you aren't comfortable with answering. So for example, sometimes case studies have a lot of numbers in there, and not everybody's comfortable with numbers. If that's the case for you and that's out of your comfort zone, then try to preempt challenging questions that you might be asked around numbers, and try to make yourself comfortable with those areas as much as you can, rather than just kind of sticking to what you know and what makes you comfortable. So I would probably cover those ones as the key ones for the case study. And like I said, really similar for the group exercise in terms of the core ask. But in a group exercise, obviously, you're being tested on your collaboration. So you want to think about how you're being inclusive of others. Being in a group and having the most impact isn't just about being the loudest voice in the room, but it's actually also how you're, bringing other people into the exercise, how you're being respectful of other people's ideas. If there's someone more kind of shy and not as forthcoming, how are you going to kind of bring them into the conversation with maybe, open-ended questions? Those types of things are really, really important. And it's important to understand kind of what the different strengths and weaknesses are of the group as well, because everyone can't be expected to be good at everything, but people will have their different strengths and weaknesses. So try to understand the characters in your group and leverage that to get the best result. So that's really important as part of the group exercise. But like I said, the sole ask would be, for you to take a problem, think about the information you've been given, and try to solve that. So that is a really quick kind of whistle-stop tour of our advice, tips and tricks for approaching assessments and application. Neil, I'll probably hand over to you, because we've got the lovely Nick on the line now. We can see him on video. So did you want to take over?
Yeah, so Justin's probably going to take over this part,
Okay.
and then I'll come back for the Q&A at the end, because we've
Sure.
had a few questions come through, but you guys did such a good presentation. I think you actually covered a lot of the questions that have been coming through
Oh,
on
cool.
the
Okay.
slide as you were talking about something, but we'll cover them anyway at the end, and I'll just
Sure.
ask you if there's any extra information you want to give people. But Justin, do you want to come on and go through the sort of the standardized questions that we had for across the event?
Sure. And can I just check my mic is live? Are we good?
Live.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Right. I'll leave you in Justin's capable hands, and I'll be back for the questions.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, Justin, you're on mute. We've all been there. It's all good.
Hi, Justin.
You're still on mute.
Still on mute. Say something.
We got it?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, perfect. All right, yeah, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, you guys give a real in-depth, but quick tour of your guys' process, and which is not something everyone all the other brands have done. So that's really great. Nick, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us about what you do at PA, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Of course, yeah, thank you. And I should say to start, I was on a webinar looking at employee burnout earlier this week, and they've done some analysis, and they've worked out that people check out at the end of the week at, on average, 2:39 on a Friday afternoon is when they're done. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you at 2:39.
Right on the dot.
Everyone's checked out. Well, never mind, you can watch it later on recording. Nick Newman, I lead our Homeland Security team at PA Consulting. I've been a partner for about 8 years. My first career was as a Royal Air Force officer for 20 years. I came across to PA in 2005 as a principal consultant, and then worked my way through. Most of my work tends to be more sort of national security, homeland security related, looking at things like counterterrorism, serious organised crime, and protecting the public from things like online harm. So, yeah, really interesting and sort of purposeful work.
Okay, great. To kick off the questions then. One thing that I found really interesting about your talk was the whole emphasis on innovation and people being able to speak up when it's needed, and having that confidence, I guess, in that sort of flat hierarchy. And so could you talk a bit more about, Nick, about why you think people choose to join PA over your competitors, and also why, importantly, they choose to stay there?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the main reason for joining is that we're very purpose led. I mean, I touched on it in my own introduction, and I mean, our mission statement is to use the power of ingenuity to build a positive human future in a technology driven world. Now, that there's a lot in that, but having that purpose at the core of our DNA about just making the world a better place, using technology, that is what the new generation entering the workplace are passionate about. It used to be about money. People care much more about joining an organization that has a purpose, and they feel like they're doing good in the world, doing good for the planet. And so that, I think, is really helping us. And related to that is the fact we're fairly unique in that we offer a complete end-to-end package. So we can do front-end strategy and strategic design with our clients. We can do the sort of implementation delivery. We build stuff. We've got a lab that builds the manufacturing plant that builds the machine, which is really rare for a consultancy. We can develop all the intellectual property rights around new products and trial them, and the brand and the marketing. So to be able to take something end-to-end is an extraordinary opportunity and quite rare in our industry. And so I think that pulls people in. Why do they stay? Because the purpose bit isn't just a strap line. So one of our proudest achievements of the last 24 months has been leading the ventilator challenge for the government. So the government phoning up and saying, PA, we need to deliver ventilators into every hospital and every Nightingale hospital. Can you guys do this end to end? Being able to be part of programs like that are life-changing, life-saving, makes a huge difference to our people. And the other reason they stay is because of the people. And it doesn't matter how many times we ask this or get asked it, everyone will always say, well, the thing I love about PA is the people I get to work with. It's that is fundamentally why people go to work in the morning, is to be able to spend their day with people they enjoy being with.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And you touched upon there about it was sort of somewhat unique, that you guys are that end-to-end. What would you say are probably some common misconceptions you think people have about PA, or particularly the work that you guys do?
I think the most obvious misconception for our entire industry is the jibe, consultants turned up, give me your watch and I'll tell you the time. It just doesn't work in our industry to go into a client engagement where your start point is, well, I know nothing about you, I've got no insight, and I just want to ask you lots and lots of questions and try and formulate an idea around the answers I get. We're well past that style of consulting, if it ever existed. You have to arrive with a real credibility in the client sector. You have to understand their operating context, their culture, their strategy and their mission in the context of their entire industry. You've then got to be really consultative about understanding the issues from different perspectives and be able to formulate your ideas. And yes, you've got to be able to bring some real ingenuity to the sort of ideas that you generate. Because let's face it, if any of these things were easy to solve, our clients would have solved them on their own. So you only arrive at the point of dealing with some of the biggest challenges they've ever encountered. So yeah, I think that sort of notion of bad consulting is long gone, and the demands on our people and our industry are going through the roof right now.
What would you say are some of the main benefits of working within consulting?
I think the first one is the absolute privilege of getting to work at the top of organizations. And actually that works inside the company as well as with our clients. Most organizations are still quite hierarchical. Certainly, when I came from my first career in the military, you kind of got to speak to your boss, and your boss would speak to your boss's boss, and and so it would go on. In consulting, you're expected to be able to engage with the C-suite. Ultimately, it's them that are making these huge investment decisions to bring in consultants, and so it's a rarity as a sort of career entry person to be exposed to senior leadership in organizations. It requires a huge amount of credibility, and that is something we're clearly selecting for. But I think that privilege, as I describe it, to be able to understand how organizations work strategically at the top of their business, and by the same token, within our firm, we have to be very flat. There's no such thing as a hierarchical leadership system. If I'm in a room trying to figure out a solution to a client's problem, everybody in that room, irrespective of rank, brings their own expertise, and you listen to everybody, and often it might be the most junior person in the room that's going to take the lead because they've got the best insight on that problem. So I think that's the thing that that makes it really different and really exciting.
Okay, great. And as a more industry specific question, what would you say that you see as the next sort of golden opportunity for growth for PA within this industry?
Well, I think for the entire industry, it has to be sustainability. It links to my earlier comments about purpose. Not only do people want to do work that has a purpose and is purposeful, it has to count. And right now, the thing at the top of everybody's agenda is how we protect the planet, how we improve the situation around climate change, and how we make all of our industries more sustainable. So I genuinely think that is going to be the single biggest issue for our industry and for our clients over the next decade or more. And to give you a sense of just why this is so important and how hard it is in my own sector, just imagine how complex it is for defense, for the armed forces, to figure out how do you change your sustainability posture and your impact on the climate when your job is warfighting. This is an organization that's currently got aircraft carriers sailing down to the Pacific. We've got fighter jets in the skies over war zones, and having to look seriously at improving sustainability. These are not easy problems to solve. And so name any client, any industry sector, this is at the top of their agenda, and it will be at the top of ours.
Okay, brilliant. And to go on to some more personal ones now, I'd be really interested to know what you think the most important lesson you've had out of your career is.
It's a great question. Thank you. The thing I always say to colleagues of whatever rank and seniority as they move through their careers, I'm now in my 37th year of my career. I think a career, and forgive the analogy, I've got two versions of it to satisfy everybody. I think a career is like collecting a bag of golf clubs and playing golf. I should say I've never actually played golf. The reason I think of it like that is anybody can have a bit of fun on a crazy golf course. You just need two clubs, pitch and putt. You can hack your way around and you can have some fun. But if you want to play a decent game of golf, you need a whole bag of clubs. And if you want to play championship golf, you probably need a really good caddy as well, who's going to advise you on how to get out of the rough or how to get out of the bunker or how to play a particularly difficult shot. And that's what a career is like, that when you get to a senior leadership position, you are going to be constantly confronted with unexpected situations, challenges, problems to deal with, and your ability to navigate those and manage them is based on the clubs in the bag. You know, if you've encountered those experiences and been broadened through your career and confronted adversity and learned how to deal with it and learned how it works for you to deal with it, then those are the experiences you carry with you. So I think there's often this desire to sort of race through a career to the top. And the problem with doing that is that you arrive at the top with only half the clubs in your bag. So the first time you get a major challenge, the risk that you're not equipped for it, that you simply have never encountered that before, you don't know how to deal with it, is going to create huge stress for you, possibly failure, possibly knock-on effects for your colleagues and your business. So I guess my central message is it's a marathon, not a sprint. I would say I've sort of paced myself through my career and enjoyed, getting to the top of it. But it's about making sure I've taken the time to invest in the learning, the education, the experiences that have equipped me to be able to be a leader at the top of my industry.
Okay, great. And how do you think the career market has changed now for early professionals? It'd be great if you guys could also join in on this one, because obviously it's becoming a lot more, personal brand based, portfolio driven. About, you mentioned earlier in your talk about, it's great. Loads of young people are starting to do their own side hustles, their own businesses, and having all these, trying to get as many of those small clubs in the bag as you can before you're getting to the role when you get on the bigger courses. I'll be interested to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's really related to what I was just saying. I mean, I think my impression is that the new generation joining the workforce are more ambitious. Certainly, they're also more capable. I'll give them that as well. When I remember back to what I was like at 18 years old joining the Air Force, they're hugely capable and talented. So that's changing the dynamics. It's exciting and terrifying as a leader. I mean, if to give you a context, if you imagine that when I started my career, albeit in the armed forces, it was illegal to be gay. Illegal. You would be court-martialed. So I grew up with a sense of ideals and values and a very poor level of diversity in the workforce around me that is completely unrecognizable to the generation entering the workforce now. And that means they've got fundamentally different expectations, ambitions, needs of what the career will offer. And that means my generation are having to adapt like never before, and absolutely should and need to adapt. So there's a really interesting tension playing out right now, which is, the ways that I've been taught to lead and to manage, they don't really work as well as they need to for this new generation. And equally, the expectations and the ambition of that generation have to be accommodated, and sometimes they need to be moderated. Sometimes it does need people like me to go, do you know what, you might need to slow down a bit and gather this bit of experience, because trust me, it will protect you in the long run. It'll avoid a whole load of stress and burnout and other issues like that. So it'd be fascinating to know what the rest of the team think, but that's the big one for me.
Sorry, you want to?
No, sorry, you go, Keith, and then I'll say after.
Cool. I think that's really a good piece of advice, Nick. And actually, do you know what? I don't envy the new generation, because even I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm old or anything, but it's definitely a few years past what I'm recruiting today, and I feel I do sympathize with the new generation. I think it seems like application processes are getting more daunting because there's so many options on the table. The assessment processes seem quite stringent and things like that. The one thing, a piece of advice I would give, and this is the same advice I've been giving for a few years, and it sounds really generic and sometimes feels like we're trying to hide the secret sauce. I'm really, really not. I think it's really try to get to know what it is that you enjoy by doing lots of different things. I think the kind of candidates that get through the process are the ones that you can really tell are active members of whatever community they want to throw themselves into. And don't ever feel that you need to pretend to be something that you're not. Because I think sometimes we meet candidates that are like, okay, I've spent my entire academic career, I'm going to get straight A's, I'm going to do all of the typical work experience and internships that I need to do, all of this stuff. And then They let other candidates feel a little bit disheartened that they don't have that background, when actually that's really not what it's about. We've all progressed as recruiters, as employers, to understand actually talent, skill set, potential comes in so many different shapes and sizes and forms and packages. So actually, if you're somebody who is naturally a little bit more of an introvert or an extrovert, whatever it is, do things that you enjoy, because what you'll realize, you'll pick up these skills that we're looking for in all the ways that sort of inspires you. So whether it's joining that sports club or volunteering here or whatever, because that is basically what sells you as an individual. And we're really just trying to get to know you as a unique person, because especially in consultancy, because it's such a varied and dynamic career, there's no one typical candidate we're looking for. So anyone who just is enthusiastic and passionate and excited because they've done lots of random things that they enjoyed, you'll end up picking up all of those teamworking, communication, leadership, all of those kind of competencies that we're looking for. We'll teach you how to be a consultant once you join as a grad, but actually want to know what drives you, because the people who tend to succeed, and it's not to succeed as a consultant, to succeed in anything, it's ones who are interested in what it is that they're doing. I mean, for an example, I studied law. Obviously not a solicitor today, but this because I didn't enjoy the work, and actually I've succeeded as a recruiter because I genuinely enjoy what I do, and I've thrown myself into it and I've adapted. But actually it's not until I got to know myself. So until you try different things, you're not going to know what you like. So try different things. Don't assume something is what it is until you've been there. I feel like that's a little bit all over the place piece of advice, but we're adapting to you guys as much as you guys are adapting to our processes. So really throw yourself into life, I think, especially if you're at university. There's so many things out there for you to try them all, and then decide what you want to do. Your application will just stand out that much more because of it. Sheeta, I don't know if you want to add to it.
I was going to build on. Oh, sorry, go on, Neil.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, we've only got 5 minutes left, so if it's okay, could I just grab a couple of questions that the audience have been asking?
Sure, yeah. Do you
right?
want to? Yep, go for it.
Yeah, so we've had some really interesting questions come through. So again, sorry to cut you off, but what innovations does PA provide in dealing with online scams, and how do you use technology to help with security? Was one of the questions.
Oh wow, well, that's a huge question, but I think the big focus at the moment is how the companies that host these online harms, and they are companies like Facebook and Twitter and TikTok, but of course there's a huge industry there. How they're using AI systems and machine learning technologies to detect the harms and then assess them and then block them. And the bottom line is, at the moment, you're having to use a lot of human talent to figure out these problems, and it's at such scale we have to use technology. So there's a huge amount of work going on in those companies, within government, within policing, trying to optimize that technology. That means creating new data environments. That means encouraging startups to come into the industry whose tools are specialized for looking at grooming conversations where pedophiles are trying to groom young children, or hate speech online. I mean, I could talk about this all day because I'm passionate about it. But I think that would be the nutshell of our focus. It's how you get the technology and the people to work together to make this more sustainable and scalable.
Fantastic. I think that's great. And we've probably got time just for one more. So there's a couple actually. There's one that I really liked, a really good question, which is probably for you, Nick. You talked a lot about credibility. One of the questions was, how do you build that credibility?
I think the main thing you're looking for in any new hire of any rank is that they're a diligent self-starter. Diligent as in, they're just gonna work hard and invest in themselves and their development and go that extra mile when it's needed. But also, the self-starter bit is our industry needs people who can arrive in an unfamiliar client, assess the situation quickly, build relationships quickly, and get on with delivery quickly. That's what our clients demand, quite reasonably. And so you look for those characteristics inside the business as well. And so those that stand out are the ones that are willing to say, okay, I might not have 100% of the knowledge here, but I've got enough, and I can put myself forward, and I can get in, I can support you, and I can reach out to others. And where I've got a gap in my knowledge, I can do some research, or I can talk to others who might be able to coach me. And it's that mindset that people bring that really differentiates those that are going to thrive and succeed in our industry.
Fantastic, and I think we've had a few more questions come through that are all kind of similar, so we can probably answer those in one go. Just about how and where do I apply for these roles? Because obviously you've made a really good impact in people. They immediately want to know how they apply for these jobs. So well done on that. So I'm going to be for everyone who's new and just on for PA consulting and wasn't on this morning, I'm going to send around lots of details in some emails next week with careers pages and other details as well. But is there any last points that anyone wanted to make? We've got a minute 23 left.
Just on that, Neil, I was just going to say, I think I mentioned it earlier, but there might be newcomers. So our roles aren't live yet, but they probably will be live in the next few weeks. So just keep an eye on our website, on the Early Careers PA Consulting website, and all our opportunities will be live on there.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for all of your time. It was a fantastic presentation. It was really, really detailed. Thank you, Nick, for the background and all that information as well. And yeah, really, really appreciate you coming on. This is going to be sent out to thousands of students next week, as well as all the people you've been speaking to today. So there's going to be some real impact from this and all the talks you've done. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
and thanks for joining. It was great being here.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Take care. See you.